The USS Venture drifted silently through the darkness of space, its hull scarred from 3 months of deep exploration. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the stars through the main viewport. His crew had been mapping unknown systems beyond Earth's borders for almost a year now. They were tired, homesick, and ready to return to familiar space. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Ryan Torres from his position at the communication station. The young officer's face showed confusion as he adjusted his headset. "There are metal fragments everywhere in this system. Big ones." Dr. Lisa Grant looked up from her science station. The ship's xenobiologist had been studying star charts for hours, but now her attention focused on the scanner readings. "Jake, these aren't natural. Someone had a major battle here, and recently." Morrison walked over to the tactical display where Commander Amy Phillips was analyzing the debris field. The tactical officer's expression was grim as she pointed to the scattered remains floating in space. "Sir, look at the size of these pieces. Whatever ships these came from were massive, much bigger than anything we've ever built." Through the viewport, Morrison could see chunks of metal and strange materials drifting past their ship. Some pieces glowed with an eerie blue light, while others seemed to pulse with a red energy that hurt to look at directly. The debris field stretched for thousands of miles in every direction. "Bobby, take us in closer," Morrison ordered. Engineer Bobby Chen nodded from his station and fired the maneuvering thrusters. The USS Venture moved carefully through the wreckage, its lights illuminating twisted metal and broken technology. Nicole Davis, their pilot, expertly guided the ship between the larger debris pieces. Her steady hands kept them safe as they navigated through what was clearly the remains of a huge space battle. "Captain, I've never seen anything like this. These ships must have been kilometers long." Dr. Grant's scanners were working overtime as they collected data from the wreckage. "Jake, I'm reading 2 completely different types of technology here. The blue glowing pieces seem to be made of some kind of living crystal. The red ones appear to be organic, like they grew instead of being built." Ryan Torres suddenly straightened at his station. "Captain, I'm picking up transmissions. They're encrypted, but they're coming from multiple directions. We're not alone out here." Morrison felt his stomach tighten. First contact with alien species was always dangerous, especially when those species had clearly been fighting each other with weapons that could destroy ships the size of small cities. "Can you decode the messages?" "I'm trying, sir. The signals are incredibly complex, but I think I'm getting some basic translation data. It looks like there are 2 different groups sending these messages, and they're not friendly with each other." Commander Phillips checked her weapon systems, though she knew their small laser cannons would be useless against technology this advanced. "Sir, should we prepare for combat? Against ships that can do this?" Morrison gestured at the massive debris field around them. "Amy, our entire fleet couldn't scratch whatever did this damage. We need to be smart, not brave." Dr. Grant continued analyzing the wreckage as they moved deeper into the debris field. "Captain, these crystal fragments are unlike anything in our databases. They seem to be able to store and manipulate energy at the molecular level. And these organic pieces, they're not just grown, they're evolved, like living ships that adapt to combat." The USS Venture shuddered slightly as a piece of debris bounced off their hull. Chief Medical Officer Dr. Karen Stone looked up from her medical bay monitoring station. "Everyone's okay down here, but we should be careful. Some of this wreckage is still giving off radiation." As they continued through the debris field, the scale of the destruction became clear. This hadn't been a single battle, but a massive fleet engagement. Hundreds of ships had fought and died here, their remains scattered across the star system like a graveyard of titans. "Ryan, any luck with those transmissions?" Morrison asked. Torres nodded, sweat beading on his forehead as he worked. "I'm getting fragments, sir. It looks like this war has been going on for a very long time. Centuries, maybe. The 2 sides call themselves the Zephyrians and the Korthak Empire. What are they fighting about? That's harder to translate, but it seems like they've been at war so long that nobody remembers how it started. They just keep fighting because that's what they've always done." Dr. Grant's face paled as she read her scanner results. "Jake, I'm detecting refugee ships fleeing this system. Dozens of different species all running from the combat zones. This war isn't just between two civilizations, it's consuming the entire galaxy. Morrison studied the tactical display showing the positions of the fleeing ships. Each one represented thousands of lives displaced by a conflict they probably didn't understand. How many species are caught up in this? At least 40 that I can identify from the ship designs, maybe more. Phillips shook her head in disbelief. This is a galactic war, and we just stumbled into the middle of it. The captain made a decision that would change everything. Instead of turning around and fleeing back to Earth, he ordered the ship to continue deeper into the system. We need to understand what we're dealing with. If this war is spreading, Earth could be next. Sir, with respect, we're completely outmatched here, Phillips said. Our weapons, our shields, our technology, it's all primitive compared to what these species can do. Maybe that's exactly why we need to learn more, Morrison replied. Sometimes being small and unnoticed is an advantage. As if summoned by his words, the space around the USS Venture suddenly filled with new contacts. Ships began appearing on their scanners, first a few, then dozens, then hundreds. 2 massive fleets were approaching the debris field from opposite directions. Captain, we have multiple contacts incoming, Phillips announced, her voice tight with tension. Both fleets are armed and moving fast. Through the viewport, Morrison could see lights in the distance growing brighter. The Zephyrian fleet approached, like a constellation of blue stars, their crystal ships reflecting and amplifying light in beautiful but deadly patterns. From the other direction came the Korthak fleet, their bioships writhing through space like massive sea creatures swimming through an ocean of stars. They're not talking to each other, Ryan reported, but they're definitely aware of each other's presence. Energy readings are off the charts. Dr. Stone checked her medical supplies, knowing that whatever happened next, there would likely be casualties. Jake, maybe we should get out of here while we still can. Morrison watched the 2 fleets approach, knowing that the USS Venture was caught directly between them. In minutes, this debris field would become a new battlefield, and his small exploration ship would be trapped in the crossfire of a war between godlike civilizations. Too late for that now, he said quietly. Ryan, try to establish communication with both fleets. Tell them we're a neutral exploration vessel. Sir, what if they consider us hostile? Morrison looked at his crew, these brave humans who had followed him into the unknown depths of space. Then we find out what humans are really made of. The 2 alien fleets continued their approach, and the USS Venture waited helplessly between them, about to witness the continuation of a war that had already consumed half the galaxy. The Zephyrian fleet arrived first, their crystal ships emerging from hyperspace like frozen lightning. Each vessel was a work of art, made entirely of living crystal that pulsed with blue energy. The largest ship was over 2 miles long, its surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. Captain Jake Morrison counted at least 50 ships in their formation, each one capable of destroying Earth's entire space fleet. Commander Amy Phillips watched her tactical display with growing dread. Captain, their energy readings are beyond our sensors' ability to measure. Those ships could vaporize us without even noticing. The Korthak fleet appeared moments later, their bioships sliding out of hyperspace like massive sea creatures. Unlike the geometric perfection of the Zephyrian vessels, these ships were alive. Their hulls rippled with muscles and veins, breathing in the vacuum of space. Organic cannons grew from their sides like tumors, while sensor arrays that looked like eyes tracked every movement around them. My God, whispered Dr. Lisa Grant from her science station. Those ships are actually alive. They're not built. They're grown and bred for war. Ryan Torres worked frantically at his communication station, trying to make sense of the alien transmissions flooding their receivers. Captain, both fleets are talking, but not to each other. They're coordinating their own battle plans. The USS Venture hung motionless in the debris field, a tiny speck between 2 forces that could reshape worlds. Morrison realized with cold certainty that neither fleet had even noticed their presence. To civilizations this advanced, humanity was invisible. Bobby Chen checked their engine status from his engineering station. Captain, all systems are green, but our maximum speed won't get us clear before they start shooting. Nicole Davis gripped her pilot controls, ready to move the instant Morrison gave the order. But they all knew it was hopeless. The alien fleets could cross the distance between star systems in minutes, while the USS Venture would need hours just to reach the edge of the debris field. The Zephyrian flagship began to glow brighter, its crystalline hull focusing energy into weapon arrays that defied human understanding. At the same time, the largest Korthak bioship stretched like a waking beast, organic cannons emerging from hidden chambers in its living flesh. Energy spike detected, Phillips announced. Both fleets are charging weapons. This is going to be ugly. Dr. Karen Stone checked her medical bay one more time, knowing that if either fleet noticed them, there would be nothing left to treat. Jake, we're about to be caught in a crossfire between gods. The battle began without warning. Beams of pure crystal energy lanced across space from the Zephyrian ships, each one hot enough to melt asteroids. The Korthak responded with bioplasma charges that seemed to eat through whatever they touched. The space between the fleets became a light show of destruction that made human weapons look like toys. Morrison watched in horror as smaller ships from both sides were destroyed in seconds. Each vessel that died represented technology and knowledge that humanity couldn't hope to match for centuries. Yet both fleets continued firing as if the losses meant nothing. Captain, we're picking up damage on both sides, but they're not stopping, Torres reported. The transmissions are getting more intense. They're actually enjoying this. A stray crystal beam passed close enough to the USS Venture to overload their shields. Emergency lights flickered as Bobby Chen rerouted power to keep their systems online. We can't take much more of this, Captain. One direct hit and we're space dust. Dr. Grant continued scanning both fleets, trying to understand what she was seeing. Jake, something's wrong here. Both sides are using weapons that should have ended this war years ago. Why is the fighting still going on? Philip studied the tactical data streaming across her screens. Because neither side can land a killing blow. Look at this, the Zephyrian crystal ships can regenerate damage by reshaping their hulls. And the Korthak bioships actually heal from battle damage. It's an endless war, Morrison realized. They've been fighting so long that both sides have evolved beyond the ability to lose. A massive explosion lit up space as two capital ships collided and destroyed each other. The shockwave hit the USS Venture, sending the crew tumbling as their artificial gravity failed for several seconds. When the systems came back online, Morrison saw that the battle had only intensified. Ryan Torres suddenly looked up from his station. Captain, I'm getting clearer translations now. The Zephyrian commander is something called Fleet Commander Veltar. The Korthak leader calls itself War Prime Gexmore. What are they saying? That's the strange part, sir. They're not talking about victory or territory or resources. They're talking about honor and duty and continuing the fight. It's like the war itself has become their entire reason for existing. Dr. Grant made a discovery that chilled everyone on the bridge. I've been analyzing the debris field and I found something terrible. Some of these ship fragments are over 100 years old, but they're mixed with pieces that are only days old. This same battle has been fought here before, many times. Morrison felt sick as the implications hit him. You mean they keep coming back to the same battlegrounds? It's worse than that. Based on the patterns I'm seeing, both fleets have been locked in the same cycle of battles for centuries. They fight, they rebuild, they come back and fight again. Nothing ever changes. A Korthak bioship suddenly noticed the USS Venture and turned toward them. Its organic sensors focused on the human vessel like a predator spotting prey. Morrison could see weapons forming along its hull, growing like cancerous growths. Captain, we've been spotted, Phillips announced. Korthak ship is targeting us. Before Morrison could order evasive action, a Zephyrian cruiser fired across their bow, apparently claiming the right to destroy the human ship first. The two alien vessels began firing at each other, using the USS Venture as an excuse to continue their eternal conflict. They're fighting over who gets to kill us, Nicole said, in disbelief. Morrison made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. Instead of trying to flee or hide, he turned to Ryan Torres with an order that seemed insane. Open a communication channel to both ships, all frequencies. Sir, that will definitely get their attention. Good. It's time someone talked to these people instead of just shooting at them. Torres worked his controls and suddenly the bridge was filled with alien voices. The Zephyrian communication was like music made of breaking glass, while the Korthak spoke in a language that sounded like growling animals. Both alien voices stopped talking when they realized a third party had joined their conversation. For the first time in the battle, complete silence fell over the debris field. Morrison took a deep breath and spoke into the communication system. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human exploration vessel USS Venture. We are a peaceful species, and we request safe passage through this system. The response was immediate and hostile. Fleet Commander Veltar's crystalline voice cut through space like a blade. Primitive, carbon-based vermin dare to interfere in our sacred combat? War Prime. Gexmoor's organic growl was equally threatening. Small meat creatures will feed our ship's growth or be dissolved into component atoms. Morrison looked at his crew, seeing fear mixed with determination in their faces. They were humans, lost in a war between gods, but they were still humans. That had to count for something. I have a proposition for both of you, Morrison said calmly. Before you destroy us, maybe you'd like to know why this war will never end. The silence that followed Captain Jake Morrison's words stretched across space like a held breath. Both alien fleets had stopped firing, their weapons still charged but pointed away from each other for the first time in the battle. Fleet Commander Veltar's crystalline voice crackled with anger and curiosity. Small creatures speak of things beyond their understanding. Our war is eternal and necessary. Your species knows nothing of honor or duty. War Prime Gexmoor's organic growl rumbled through the communication channel. Tiny meat beings dare to judge warriors who have fought for 300 cycles. Your kind will make good fertilizer for our ship gardens. Morrison looked at his crew on the bridge of the USS Venture. Commander Amy Phillips had her hand ready on the weapons controls, though they all knew their small lasers were useless. Dr. Lisa Grant was studying her scanner readings with intense focus, while Ryan Torres worked to keep the communication channels open. Bobby Chen monitored their failing shields, and Nicole Davis kept the ship steady despite her trembling hands. You've been fighting for 300 years, Morrison said calmly into the communicator. And what have you accomplished? This debris field is proof that nothing ever changes. You fight, you die, you rebuild, and you fight again. When does it end? The crystalline ship's hull flared with bright blue light as Veltar responded. It ends when the Korthak admit their corruption and submit to crystal purity. Never shall we yield to their biological weakness. Gexmoor's bioship pulsed with red veins of anger. It ends when crystal slaves accept that life grows stronger through conflict. Their static perfection is death itself. Dr. Grant looked up from her science station with wide eyes. Captain, I'm reading something incredible. Both fleets are showing signs of severe resource depletion. Their ships are running on reserve power and many of their weapons are damaged from overuse. Morrison realized what she meant. They're exhausted. Both sides are barely holding together, but neither can afford to show weakness. Phillips checked her tactical display again. Sir, if Dr. Grant is right, then this isn't a battle between two strong forces. It's a fight between two dying civilizations who can't stop fighting long enough to survive. The captain made a decision that shocked everyone on the bridge. Ryan, I want you to transmit something to both fleets. Send them our entire historical database. Torres looked confused. Sir, that will include all of our military secrets, our technology, everything about Earth. Do it. Send them everything we know about human history, every war we've fought, every peace treaty we've signed, every time we've chosen to stop fighting and start building. Dr. Karen Stone looked up from her medical station. Jake, are you sure about this? Once they know everything about us, we'll have no secrets left. Morrison nodded grimly. We don't have any secrets worth keeping from civilizations this advanced. But maybe we have something they've forgotten. The transmission began, and Morrison could hear the alien voices discussing what they were receiving. Human history flowed through space to both fleets. The wars of ancient Earth, the treaties that ended them, The alliances that formed between former enemies and the slow progress toward peace. Captain, Torres said quietly, they're not just reading our military history. They're studying our diplomatic records, our peace negotiations, even our trade agreements. Veltar's voice cut through the channel, confused and angry. These records show your species fighting internal wars, then ceasing combat without total victory. This is incomprehensible. How can warriors stop fighting without defeating their enemies? Gexmore seemed equally puzzled. Your kind allows defeated enemies to survive and rebuild. This violates all natural law. The weak must be consumed so the strong can grow. Morrison saw his opportunity. That's exactly the point. We learned something that maybe you've forgotten. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose not to fight. Dr. Grant had been studying both fleets more carefully while they talked. Captain, I'm detecting something important. Both the Zephyrian and Korthak ships are showing signs of technological stagnation. Their weapons and defenses haven't improved in decades because they're too busy fighting to innovate, Phillips realized. All their resources go to replacing what they lose in battle. Morrison pressed his advantage. Fleet Commander Veltar, War Prime Gexmore, when was the last time either of your civilizations built something new? Not a weapon, not a warship, but something that wasn't designed to kill? The silence that followed was longer this time. Finally, Veltar spoke, his crystalline voice softer than before. The crystal cities of our homeworld have not grown in 50 cycles. All crystal shapers work only on ship hulls and weapon arrays. Gexmore's organic growl carried a note of something like sadness. Our breeding pools produce only war forms now. The peaceful varieties died out long ago. Dr. Grant made another discovery that made her gasp. Captain, I'm reading genetic markers in the debris field. Both species have been interbreeding with each other on frontier worlds. There are hybrid populations out there. Morrison felt a surge of hope. You mean they're not just fighting each other? They're fighting their own children. That's impossible, Veltar declared, but his voice cracked like breaking crystal. Crystal purity cannot be contaminated by biological chaos. Your scanners lie, Gexmore snarled, but his ship's bio-readings showed stress patterns that resembled grief. Our spawn would never corrupt themselves with static crystal. Ryan Torres looked up from his station. Captain, I'm intercepting communications from the refugee ships that fled this system. Some of them are mixed crews, Zephyrian and Korthak. Working together, Morrison played his final card. Both of you scan the USS Venture, look at our crew. We have people from different nations, different cultures, different backgrounds. 100 years ago, some of our ancestors were fighting wars against each other. Now we explore the galaxy together. The scans began immediately, both alien fleets, studying the small human ship. Morrison could feel their sensors examining every detail of the USS Venture, reading the genetic markers of his crew, analyzing their cultural backgrounds and family histories. Bobby Chen looked nervous as the scans continued. Captain, they're reading everything about us. Our DNA, our personal histories, even our family trees. Let them, Morrison said. Maybe they'll see something they've forgotten about themselves. Dr. Grant's scanners showed both fleets powering down their weapons gradually. Captain, I think it's working. Their energy readings are dropping. Veltar's voice came through the communicator, filled with something that might have been wonder. These creatures show genetic markers from across their entire world, yet they function as a single unit. How is this possible without crystal harmony? Gexmore sounded equally amazed. Their biological diversity strengthens them instead of weakening them. This contradicts everything we know about survival. Morrison smiled for the first time since the battle began. That's because you've forgotten the most important thing about survival. It's not about being the strongest or the most perfect. It's about being able to change, to adapt, to work together instead of tearing each other apart. The space around the USS Venture began to change. Both alien fleets were repositioning, their weapons still powered down. For the first time in 3 centuries, Zephyrian and Korthak ships were moving closer to each other without firing. Captain, Philip said in amazement, I think they're actually listening to us. Morrison nodded, but he knew the hardest part was still ahead. Getting them to stop fighting was just the beginning. Now came the real challenge, convincing two godlike civilizations to trust a species they considered primitive enough to teach them something about peace. The moment of peace didn't last long. Fleet Commander Veltar's crystalline voice suddenly turned cold and suspicious. Small creatures attempt to weaken us with their strange ideas. Crystal perfection requires no lessons from primitive beings. War Prime. Kexmore's bioship pulsed with renewed aggression. Meat things try to confuse us with their weakness. True strength comes from consuming enemies, not befriending them. Captain Jake Morrison watched both alien fleets begin to power up their weapons again. The brief moment of understanding was slipping away as centuries of habit reasserted itself. Both commanders seemed to realize they had shown weakness by listening to humans, and now they were angry about it. Captain, energy readings are spiking again. Commander Amy Phillips reported from her tactical station. They're about to resume fighting, and we're still caught in the middle. Morrison knew he had only seconds before the battle restarted, and the USS Venture was destroyed in the crossfire. He made a desperate decision that shocked his entire crew. Ryan, send out a general broadcast to every ship, station, and colony within 50 light years. Tell them what's happening here. Ryan Torres looked confused. Sir, that will bring every military force in the sector. We'll start a galactic war. No, Morrison said with quiet certainty. We're going to end one. The broadcast went out across multiple frequencies, carrying the story of the eternal war between the Zephyrians and Korthak. Within minutes, responses began flooding in from across the galaxy. Human colonies, alien trading posts, refugee settlements, and exploration vessels all acknowledged the transmission. Dr. Lisa Grant monitored the incoming signals with growing excitement. Jake, look at this. The response isn't what we expected. Nobody's sending warships, they're sending witnesses. Hundreds of civilian vessels began appearing at the edge of the system. Not military fleets, but ordinary people from dozens of species who had heard the broadcast and come to see the legendary war for themselves. Trade ships, colony transports, research vessels, and family groups all gathered to watch. Bobby Chen checked the sensor readings with amazement. Captain, there are over 300 ships out there now, and more arriving every minute. None of them are armed. Fleet Commander Veltar seemed disturbed by the growing audience. Why do these lesser beings gather? This is sacred combat, not entertainment for primitives. War Prime Gexmore's bioship showed signs of agitation as organic sensors tracked the civilian fleet. Observers will witness our great victory over crystal slaves. Let them see true biological superiority. But Dr. Grant had made a discovery that changed everything. Captain, I'm analyzing the civilian ships and I found something incredible. Look at the crew manifests. Morrison studied the data streaming across her screen. Mixed crews were common among the civilian vessels. Zephyrian traders worked alongside Korthak merchants. Hybrid families lived together on colony ships. Scientists from both species collaborated on research projects. My God, whispered Dr. Karen Stone from her medical station. The war is irrelevant to most of the galaxy. People have been making peace on their own. Ryan Torres intercepted communications between the civilian ships and translated them for the bridge crew. Captain, they're not here to watch the battle. They're here to tell both fleets to stop disturbing the peace. The most shocking revelation came when Nicole Davis identified one of the arriving civilian vessels. That's not just any colony ship. According to its registration, it's carrying refugees from both Zephyrian and Korthak worlds. They've been living together peacefully for over 50 years. Morrison realized the magnitude of what they had discovered. The eternal war that consumed both civilizations' resources and attention had become meaningless to their own people. While the fleets fought their endless battles, ordinary citizens had quietly built the peace their leaders couldn't imagine. He opened a communication channel to both alien commanders. Veltar Gexmore, I want you to scan the civilian ships. Look at who's aboard them. Really look. The scans began and Morrison could hear both alien voices falling silent as they processed what their sensors revealed. Zephyrian crystal shapers working with Korthak bioengineers. Hybrid children playing games that combined both cultures. trade agreements signed between communities that officially didn't exist. Veltar's crystalline voice cracked with something, like pain. This cannot be true. Crystal purity demands separation from biological corruption. Gexmoor's organic growl carried notes of confusion and loss. Our spawn would never willingly merge with static crystal. It violates natural selection. Dr. Grant transmitted her most important discovery directly to both flagships. I've been analyzing genetic samples from the debris fields of your previous battles. Both your species evolved from the same ancient civilization that split apart thousands of years ago. You're not enemies fighting for survival. You're family members who forgot they were related. The silence that followed was absolute. Every ship in the system, military and civilian alike, waited for the response. Morrison could feel the weight of history balancing on the edge of this moment. Bobby Chen monitored the power readings from both fleets. Captain, their weapons are powering down again, but this time it looks permanent. Fleet Commander Veltar spoke first, his voice barely audible through the crystal harmonics. Ancient records mention the Great Sundering, when our people chose different paths to perfection. But those are myths, stories told to younglings. War Prime Gexmoor's response was equally quiet. The oldest ones spoke of crystal kin who chose stasis over growth. We thought them extinct for millennia. Morrison saw his chance and took it. They're not extinct. They're right here, fighting you. And you're not biological corruption or static perfection. You're two parts of the same whole, trying to destroy each other because you've forgotten how to be complete. The civilian fleet began broadcasting their own messages. Not threats or demands, but simple stories. Zephyrian Korthak families sharing meals. Hybrid children learning both crystal shaping and bioengineering. Communities where both species work together to build something better than either could create alone. Ryan Torres translated the flood of civilian communications. Captain, they're all saying the same thing. They want the war to end so they can stop hiding their peaceful cooperation. Morrison made his final move. Veltar Gexmoor, I'm inviting both of you aboard the USS Venture as my guests. No weapons, no guards, no formal protocols. Just two tired leaders having coffee and talking about what comes next. The request was so absurd that both alien commanders seemed stunned. Ambassador visits between their species required months of negotiation and elaborate ceremonies. Morrison was suggesting they just drop by for a casual conversation. Phillips looked at Morrison with concern. Sir, are you sure about this? If something goes wrong, then at least we'll have tried something different, Morrison replied. Amy, prepare the conference room, Bobby. Make sure we have enough coffee for guests who might not drink coffee. 20 minutes later, the impossible happened. Two shuttles, launched from the opposing flagships and docked with the USS Venture simultaneously. Fleet Commander Veltar materialized as a being of living crystal that reflected light in impossible ways. War Prime Gexmoor arrived as a creature of flowing organic matter that shifted constantly between different forms. They sat across from each other in the USS Venture's modest conference room, sipping coffee from ceramic cups, while Captain Morrison explained the concept of compromise. The Eternal War ended not with a final battle, but with two ancient enemies discovering they had forgotten how to be friends. Dr. Stone later wrote in her medical log that she had witnessed the galaxy's most advanced species learn humanity's most basic lesson. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is simply stop fighting and start talking.